The first thing I remember is waking up in an operating room. I had no memory of needing an operation. And come to think of it, I had no memory of anything past waking up. I got up and found that nothing but blackness spaced beyond the operating light hanging above the table. I felt different somehow. The skin around my ears felt stretched and close to ripping, and I felt short. Somehow I felt I was taller before whatever happened to me, but of course I wasn't able to explain this past a mere hunch I had. I was in pain. Nobody was around, and I began to panic. Why was it dark? Why was nobody here? Had I been kidnapped and experimented on? One thing was certain. This wasn't a hospital. I would have seen someone by now if it was. I looked to the left and saw something shimmering in the darkness. Something shiny and metallic. I reached for the operating light and shined it towards the shimmering object. It was a mirror. I couldn't see myself from the distance I was and the light shining in my eyes, so I decided to move closer to the mirror. The fall seemed much higher than it should have been. I was definitely inhumanly short. And according to the stitched up scars on my arms and legs, it appeared that that was the surgeon's intent. But why? I must also note that by the look of the stitch work, it was not a professional that did this. The stitches didn't close the wound completely, and looked like they were weaved with normal thread. The skin was also infected and swollen. I was in so much pain. I felt like my arms and legs were going to fall off. I was barely able to walk. I really wasn't able to walk either. I hadn't gotten used to my shortened legs, so it was more like waddling towards the mirror. When I approached it, I saw myself, and I immediately shrieked in horror. I couldn't have been more than 3 feet tall. I was incredibly thin as well. So thin, I could see my ribs all the way up to my collarbone. My ears were pointed high above my head. And again, the skin around the bloody mess of stitches was swollen and infected. The only thing that seemed normal about me was my hands. As soon as I looked up from my hands, I saw the one responsible for transforming my body into this atrocity. A severely obese man in a fur coat and pants dyed with blood, and a hat made the exact same way. His face was wrinkled and covered with a massive scraggly beard. His teeth were yellow and rotten, and his breath smelled like death. Before I had time to run away, he injected me with some sort of chemical, and I fell flat on the ground. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the sick, twisted monster of a man laughing. I woke up in a tiny bed tailored just for my size. I was in pain and nearly freezing to death. The blanket was providing me no warmth at all. The only thing keeping me warm was my hatred for the old man that did this to me. I looked around my small room and saw some clothes hanging on a door. Finally something to wear. It was an outfit much like the old man's, only green, and also there were clog-like work shoes. Why was I here? What did the old man want with me? Why did he do what he did to me? I heard a beating on the door. A familiar laughing filled my ears. It was the old man. I quickly looked around for an escape, but there was no window, vents, or anything. He was going to be inside in seconds. The door was going to give. Before I even had time, the door swung open. Who are you? What do you want with me? Before I had time to react, I was thrown into a cold, dark, and dirty room filled with people just like me. Some were young and some looked as old as the old man. Some were even kids. I realized they were all wearing the same clothes as me. They were building toys. All kinds of dollhouses, trains. God, some of them were even building electronic items, like computers. They all had scars like mine. A ring around their arms and legs. Some of the younger ones still had the stitches like mine. It was at that moment that I realized what I was. I was the red-suited man's servant, building items for him to deliver to all the good boys and girls. Did you really think your only punishment for being bad was a bag of coal?